What happens when the boss walks in wearing grease-stained jeans, and no one knows he owns the place? That question bounced around in Quentin Vale's mind as he pulled into the cracked asphalt lot of store 7, one of 14 used car dealerships he'd quietly built over the last 6 years. This one sat just outside Indianapolis, tucked between a shuttered strip mall and a discount furniture warehouse. It looked the same as always from the outside: faded signage, uneven banners flapping in the wind, and a half-hearted summer savings poster taped crooked in the window. Quentin shut off the engine of the beat-up Nissan Sentra he'd borrowed for the role, exhaled, and stared at his reflection in the mirror. His beard was thicker than usual, dyed with streaks of gray. A fake tattoo of a wrench curled around his forearm. His name tag, Toby, clipped to a faded red polo. The disguise was good. No one at this store had ever met him. Most of the staff had been hired after the acquisition 3 years ago, and the store manager, Devin, had only ever seen him once during a Zoom call. His gut told him something wasn't right here. It wasn't customer complaints that tipped him off. It was silence. This location hadn't submitted a single customer satisfaction report in 3 months. Their sales numbers looked decent, but almost too steady. Too clean. Like someone was rounding off the edges, so now he was here, as a trainee. To find out for himself. Inside, the showroom had that familiar used car staleness. The smell of plastic polish, stale coffee, and cheap cologne clung to the air. A young woman at the front desk barely looked up. "You the new guy?" she asked, chewing gum. "Yeah, Toby. District sent me for training." She pointed toward the back with her thumb. "Devin's in his office. Knock loud, he's always got that damn speaker on." Quentin nodded and walked past a row of shiny, buffed-up sedans. His boots thudded on the tile floor. Just before he reached the office, he caught the tail end of a heated conversation. "I don't care if it had flood damage. You pull the clean report and pitch it. Don't offer it unless they ask. Got it?" A male voice, sharp and impatient. Quentin paused. A second voice, lower, uncertain. "But that last guy, he said he wanted the full history, and you talk him out of it. You want to make commission or scrub tires." Quentin knocked hard twice. The voices stopped. The door opened a moment later. A man in his late 30s with slicked back hair and too much cologne gave him a once-over. "Toby, right?" "Yeah," Quentin said. "Cool, I'm Devin, manager. We'll get you started on the lot. You wash cars before?" "I've done worse." Devin grinned. "You'll fit right in." The first 2 days were slow. Quentin shadowed Jake, a lanky 19-year-old with a dirt-smudged name tag and a habit of talking too much when nervous. Jake mostly had him prepping cars, hosing down tires, wiping glass, and making sure anything with a dent was parked closer to the back. On day 3, Jake cracked. They were wiping down a 2019 Ford Escape when Jake muttered, "This one's a mess. Rear end frame damage." "I saw the pics before Devin made him pull the clean title." Quentin turned. "Wait, what?" Jake stiffened. "Nothing. I didn't mean to say anything. You said frame damage." Jake looked around. They were alone for now. His shoulders dropped. "Yeah, real bad. But Devin's got this guy, Rick, in the back office who knows how to pull the clean Carfax. They only show it if someone asks, and even then, they show the fake one first." Quentin stared at him. "Isn't that illegal?" Jake wiped his hands on a rag. "You think anybody here cares?" "As long as the car runs and the customer doesn't notice until months later, Devin says it's their problem. Corporates never checked." Quentin's chest tightened. This wasn't just shady, it was a lawsuit waiting to happen. Later that afternoon, Quentin watched it happen with his own eyes. A woman in her mid-40s came in with her son, maybe 18. They looked nervous but serious. First car. Quentin stood nearby as Devin took them through the lot. "This one's a beauty," Devin said, patting the same Escape. "No accidents, one owner, clean report." The mother squinted. "Can we see the actual history report?" "Of course," Devin said smoothly. He turned to Rick, who pulled a paper from a manila folder. Quentin stepped closer. He could see the watermark, fake. The woman frowned. "This doesn't mention any service records or mileage gaps." Devin gave a light chuckle. Some reports are just like that, especially from older systems, but I can assure you this car's solid. Take it for a spin." The son looked hesitant. "Can we take it to our mechanic first?" Devin's tone shifted just slightly. "You could, but we've already had it inspected. We can't hold the car if you leave it's a hot item." The mother looked unsure, but Devin pushed gently. "You're not going to find a better deal in town." Quentin watched them drive off in the car. No mechanic visit, just pressure and charm. That night, Quentin sat in the back corner of the break room, alone. His hands were still grimy, but he didn't notice. His stomach turned. This wasn't a gray area. This was fraud. And it had been going on under his nose. He thought back to the team he'd built. The long nights in his 20s. Buying the first 2 locations with everything he had. He never wanted to be the CEO who lost touch. But here he was, people using his name to trick customers, and yet, there was Jake. Nervous but honest. Trying to do the right thing, Quentin leaned back and exhaled. Tomorrow he'd push deeper. He needed to know how far this went and who else was in on it. And then he'd burn it to the ground if he had to. No one lies under his roof and keeps their job. The next morning, the air outside was heavy with humidity, and a haze clung to the lot like fog over a swamp. Quentin arrived early before anyone else. He sat in the Nissan with the windows cracked, sipping burnt gas station coffee, watching the building as if it might confess something in silence. He wasn't waiting for a show. He was waiting for patterns. By 7:30, Jake pulled up in a faded blue Civic and slumped out of the driver's seat with a slow, reluctant gait. He hadn't noticed Quentin until he was halfway to the employee entrance. "You're here early," Jake said, eyebrows raised. "Couldn't sleep." "Figured I'd beat the heat." Jake unlocked the side door and held it open. "You might regret that when you're baking on the front row by noon." They stepped inside. The lights flickered on with a buzz. Quentin followed him to the break area where Jake tossed his backpack on a folding chair and peeled the lid off a yogurt cup. "Hey," Quentin said, keeping his voice low. "Yesterday, that couple that bought the Escape, you ever see them come back?" Jake shook his head. "Most don't. Not right away anyway. Sometimes we hear from them if something breaks, but Devin usually blames it on wear and tear." "You ever think about saying something?" Jake hesitated, spoon halfway to his mouth. "To who?" "HR, they don't even answer the phone, and Devin, he keeps records. You complain, he finds a way to cut your hours or mess with your pay. Last guy who tried that disappeared from the schedule." "Still," Quentin said, "if someone gets hurt because of a bad car." "I know." Jake stood, tossed the yogurt away untouched. "I'm not proud of it. But I'm not the one lying to their face either. I just wash 'em." Quentin wanted to press further, but footsteps echoed from the front. Devin strolled in wearing a fresh button-up and aviators resting on his chest. He gave a quick nod. "Morning, gentlemen. Big day, got a trade incoming at noon." "Toby, you're on detail." "Jake, shadow Rick, he's got paperwork piling up." Jake gave a small nod and left without a word. Quentin followed Devin to the lot, where a line of cars sat freshly rinsed but streaked from drying too fast in the sun. Devin pointed to a cherry-red Altima. "Customers picking this one up at 4, I want it spotless, no excuses." Quentin nodded. "Mind if I ask what we're offering for the trade-in?" Devin turned, eyes narrowing slightly. "You asking a lot of questions for a new guy, just curious." "Figure if I'm learning the ropes, might as well learn the business side too." Devin grinned, but it didn't reach his eyes. "That's above your pay grade. Stick to hoses and wax for now." Quentin spent the next hour scrubbing grime from wheel wells and picking pebbles from the floor mats, but his attention kept drifting toward the small prefab trailer behind the showroom, the so-called back office. He hadn't been inside yet. No one had invited him, and when he'd tried the handle his first day, it had been locked. At 9:30, Rick stepped out carrying a stack of folders and a phone pressed to his ear. Quentin caught a brief phrase as he passed. "No, just listed as reconditioned, not rebuilt." Rick disappeared into the main building. Quentin set down the rag and walked around the side of the trailer. The back window was cracked open to vent the heat. Inside, he could see a desk cluttered with 2 laptops, a printer, and what looked like a scanner. A whiteboard on the wall listed VIN numbers, each with a color-coded sticker next to it: green, yellow, red. Several were underlined in blue marker. He didn't have long. A door slammed nearby and he moved away just as Devin stepped outside, lighting a cigarette and glancing around. "Need you up front," Devin called out. "Customers got a question about the Camry." Quentin wiped his hands and followed him inside. The customer, a man in his 60s with oil-stained coveralls and a skeptical look, stood by the counter. "This says it's a single-owner car," the man said, holding out the listing. "But I ran the VIN through a site I trust. It came up with 3 prior registrations and a salvage record." Devin's smile was immediate but tight. "That sounds like a clerical error." "Happens all the time with third-party lookups. We use the certified dealer system, far more accurate." "Mind showing me that one?" Devin didn't flinch. "Rick's got access. He's finishing up some paperwork, but I'll have him print it for you." "In the meantime, would you like to test drive it?" The man shook his head. "Not until I see that report." "I understand. Let me go check." Devin walked off, but instead of heading to Rick's office, he ducked into the break room. Quentin followed at a distance and heard him on the phone. "Yeah, we've got one of those VIN warriors out front. Pull the green version and get it up here." Quentin returned to the customer. "He's getting the report." The man nodded. "I've been a mechanic 30 years. These guys think they can outtalk experience." Rick appeared 5 minutes later with a printed report that contradicted the man's findings. Clean title, 1 owner, no salvage. The man read it, then shook his head slowly. "This ain't right." "I know what I saw." "I'm sorry, sir," Devin said, stepping in again. "That's all the information we have. If you're not comfortable, I understand." The man left empty-handed. That afternoon, Quentin finally caught a moment alone with the receptionist, Tasha, while she was restocking paper in the printer. "Hey, Tasha," he said casually. "You've been here a while, right? 2 years. You ever had customers come back angry?" "About the car history," she looked at him, then turned back to the paper tray. "You asking as Toby the trainee or something else?" He hesitated, "just trying to understand the place." She closed the tray. "I've seen people cry in that parking lot." One guy found out his car had been totaled in another state. Devin told him it must have been a database mix-up. The guy drove off without saying a word, pretty sure he knew he got scammed. "Why not report it?" "Because Rick's been here since the last owner ran the place. He knows every loophole." Devin's just the mouth, and the rest of us. We keep our heads down and our checks coming. Before Quentin could reply, the front door swung open. A teenage girl, no older than 16, walked in holding a clipboard. A heavy-set man in a tank top followed behind. "We're here for the Civic," the man said gruffly. Tasha glanced at the schedule. "It's not ready yet, still in the wash. We were told noon." "I can call the lot crew, no need," the man said, brushing past her. "We'll go check ourselves." Quentin stepped in front of him. "Sir, the car's not yet prepped. Give us 15 minutes and we'll have it clean and ready." The man looked him up and down. "You the one selling it?" "No, but I prepped it. I can help answer any questions." "Yeah, doesn't look like you know squat." The girl touched the man's arm. "Dad, stop." He ignored her. "We drive 2 hours for a Civic and now get attitude from the janitor." Quentin's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice steady. "I'm here to help, but if you're not willing to be respectful, I can call someone else to assist." Devin appeared from his office. "Everything okay?" The man turned. "Your guy's got a mouth." Devin gave Quentin a quick glance, then smiled at the man. "Let's get you taken care of. Toby, go finish the prep." As Quentin walked off, he could hear Devin's voice drop into a flatter, more accommodating tone. The shift was instant. Polished, coaxing, but Quentin wasn't interested in performance anymore. He had what he needed. Tomorrow, he'd come in before opening and unlock Rick's office. He'd seen where the spare keys were hidden, tucked behind the fuse box in the hallway. No cameras back there, no one watching. It was time to confirm what he already knew, and once he did, there'd be no more pretending. The sky was still dark when Quentin stepped out of his car. The lot lights cast a pale yellow over the cracked pavement as he moved quickly around the side of the building. He'd waited until Wednesday for a reason Rick always came in late on Wednesdays. That gave him just under an hour before the back office was occupied. He slipped through the side door and moved down the hall, past the employee lockers and mop closet. The fuse box sat behind a warped wooden panel, and with a gentle tug, the key dropped into his hand. Just like he'd seen, the door to Rick's trailer stuck slightly before giving way. Inside, the heat was thick. 2 fans sat unplugged in the corner. The desk was cluttered with receipts, VIN logs, envelopes with half-torn labels. Quentin ignored the surface chaos and moved to the locked drawer beneath the left monitor. He tried the key. It clicked open. Inside were 3 USB sticks, a flash scanner, and a stack of printed title reports, some labeled client copy, others marked internal. He scanned through them quickly. Each client version had missing information, especially in the accident and service history sections. The internal reports were complete, with damage records, mileage rollbacks, even some flagged as irreparable. Every single one had been altered. He took out his phone and began photographing everything: the drawer, the reports, the VIN board, the scanner serial number. When he finished, he slid the drawer shut and replaced the key. The room looked exactly as he'd found it. By the time he got back to the break room, Jake was pouring cereal into a foam bowl. He looked up. "You look like you've been up since last night," Jake said. "Didn't sleep much," Quentin replied. Jake nodded slowly, then looked around. "You ever think about quitting?" "Why would I do that?" "Because this place, it makes you feel like you're part of something dirty even if you're not the one making the calls." Quentin sat down across from him. "What would you do if you were in charge?" Jake blinked. "You mean like if I ran the store?" "Yeah. I'd stop pushing the trash cars. I'd fix what needed fixing, sell him honest, and if we lost a sale, we'd lose it clean." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Probably get fired for that." Quentin leaned back in his chair. "Maybe not." Before Jake could respond, Tasha stuck her head in the door. "Devin wants you at the main desk," she said to Quentin. "Some delivery issue." Quentin stood and followed her. The front lobby was empty except for Devin and a man in a faded green jumpsuit rolling in a tool chest. Devin pointed to a white mid-size sedan parked near the curb. "That's our rental loaner. Customers dropping it off, but the brake light's been on since yesterday. Go check it out. If it's just the sensor, reset it." Quentin stepped outside, opened the driver door, and slid in. The check brake light was on, but more concerning was the soft feel of the pedal. He popped the hood and checked fluid levels. Low, too low. He walked back in. "That car's not safe to drive, brake fluid's near empty." Devin waved a hand. "Top it off. It just sat all weekend. Happens." "No, it doesn't. Something's leaking or it was never serviced." Devin dropped his voice. "Look, the customer's already on their way. They're just swapping it and leaving." "You want to make this a thing? If they drive that car and get hurt, it's already a thing." Devin stared at him for a long second. "Fine, park it out back. We'll say it wouldn't start." Before Quentin could respond, the front door swung open and a woman stepped inside. She wore a simple dress and carried a folder. Her expression was tense. "I'm here for the trade-in review," she said. "Nina Langston." Devin smiled like he'd hit a switch. "Of course. You're early, which is great. Rick will be out in a moment and we'll get everything squared away." Quentin stepped aside as Miss Langston handed over her documents. Her voice was calm but firm. "I have the original title, recent service records, and I ran the VIN myself. I just want everything documented before I sign anything." Devin took the folder and motioned toward the seating area. "Absolutely, we'll go through everything." Once Miss Langston sat down, Devin turned toward Rick's office. Only Rick wasn't there yet. "Tasha," Devin called. "Where's Rick?" he texted. "Running late again." Quentin watched Devin's jaw tighten for just a moment before smoothing back out. "I'll get her started," Devin said and walked off with the folder. When he was out of earshot, Tasha approached Quentin. "She's sharp," she said quietly. "Asked for a full mechanical inspection before she even parked." "Good," Quentin replied. That's how it should be. She won't get it. Quentin nodded once, then walked outside to cool off. The sun was climbing, but it wasn't the heat that bothered him. It was the knowledge that if he walked away right now, nothing would change. Devin would keep misleading customers. Rick would keep printing fakes. Jake would stay quiet. And Tasha would keep watching people get taken advantage of. He pulled out his phone and made a call. "Hey," he said into the line. "It's Quentin. I need you to come down to store 7. Don't tell anyone why. Just bring your HR binder and meet me out back in 1 hour." The voice on the other end responded with confusion but agreed. He hung up and headed for the maintenance bay. The mechanic on duty, a man in his 50s with graying hair and a limp, was tightening lug nuts on a Corolla. "You Marvin?" Quentin asked. "Yeah, you looked at the Civic that came in Monday." "Which one?" "Silver, front-end damage. They cleaned it up for resale." Marvin wiped his hands. "Yeah, I told Rick it needed a new subframe. He told me to keep quiet and write it up as cosmetic only." "You do it?" "No," Marvin met his eyes. "I've been in this business 30 years. I'm not signing off on a death trap." "Did he sign your name?" "I wouldn't put it past him." Quentin nodded. "Thanks." By the time he returned to the front, Rick had arrived and was in his office with Devin. The door was closed, blinds drawn. Through the gap, Quentin could see them flipping through Nina Langston's folder. Then Devin's voice, barely audible, cut through. "Just use the standard report." "She won't know the difference." Quentin didn't wait. He stepped back outside and stood near the loading dock until a black SUV pulled up. A woman in a gray pantsuit stepped out, carrying a thick folder. "Carmen Blaylock," she said. "Senior HR Compliance." "Good," Quentin said. "Come with me." They entered through the service door and moved straight to Rick's office. Quentin didn't knock. He opened the door and stepped inside. Devin looked up, irritated. "What the hell are you?" "I'm Quentin Vale," he said, pulling off the name tag. "I own this company." Silence. Rick blinked. Devin's mouth stayed slightly open. Carmen stepped in behind him. "We need to speak with both of you, privately." Now, Rick stood up. "This is a misunderstanding." "No," Quentin said. "It's fraud. You've been altering vehicle history reports, misleading customers, and putting unsafe vehicles on the road. I have documentation, photos, and witness statements. You're both done. Effective immediately." Devin stepped forward. "You can't just walk in here and you're terminated. Carmen will walk you through the exit process. If you resist, I'll involve legal." Rick sat down heavily. Devin's face went pale. Quentin turned to Carmen. "Secure the office, lock the systems, pull every file from Rick's drives." She nodded and got to work. Outside, Jake was watching from the edge of the hallway. Tasha stood near the front desk, her hand over her mouth. Quentin walked up to both of them. "They're gone," he said. "You're safe." Jake blinked. "You're the owner." "I am." He turned to Tasha. "I want you to run the front desk for the next few weeks. You'll work directly with Carmen." Tasha nodded slowly. Quentin looked back at Jake. "You said you'd run this place clean. I'm giving you the chance. You'll coordinate re-inspections on every car sold in the last 60 days. We'll cover the costs. If anything went out unsafe, we'll recall it." Jake's expression was stunned. "You serious?" "Completely." He turned to Marvin, who had joined them near the doorway. "I want you to audit every car on the lot. You'll get 2 assistants starting tomorrow, full pay. No pressure to clear anything that's not ready." Marvin gave a single nod. Quentin exhaled for the first time in hours. There was still more work to do, calls to make, legal steps to initiate, customers to contact, but for the first time in a long time, he felt in control again. This wasn't just about fixing mistakes. It was about never letting them happen again. By the following Monday, the atmosphere at Store 7 had shifted from anxious to uncertain. The shock of Devin and Rick's firings still lingered. Their absence left a vacuum, and without them driving the pace, the staff defaulted to quiet observation. Everyone moved a little slower, unsure whether they'd be next or if things would finally get better. Quentin didn't dress as Toby anymore. His beard was trimmed, the fake tattoo removed, and his name tag now simply read Q. Vale. He didn't announce his presence to customers, nor did he plant himself in an office. Instead, he took a folding chair and parked himself in the middle of the showroom with a notepad, watching, listening, and stepping in only when necessary. Late that morning, Jake stood beside a young couple inspecting a recent trade-in. They asked questions hesitantly, clearly wary of being rushed. Quentin noticed Jake pause after each question, giving them room to think. He didn't push, he didn't dodge, he just answered factually and plainly. After the couple left to think about it, Quentin approached him. "You handled that with patience." Jake adjusted his sleeves. "I figured if they leave without buying but still trust us, they'll be back." "Good instinct," Quentin said. "They're already on the recall list anyway. Rear differentials overdue for replacement. I flagged it yesterday. You did the right thing." Jake nodded, a little more confident now. "Thanks." Quentin tapped the notepad against his palm. "We'll need someone to train the new hires. You up for that once HR clears them?" Jake blinked. "You want me to train them? You've seen what not to do." "That makes you qualified." Across the lot, Carmen finished a call and approached with a clipboard. Her pace was brisk, her presence calm but firm. She handed Quentin the sheet. "That's the first batch of customer callbacks. We've already heard back from 9. So far, no injuries, but 2 vehicles are being towed in today for full diagnostics. We're covering parts and labor." Quentin scanned the list. "Any pushback on offering refunds?" Some confusion, but no anger. "Once we explained the full situation, most were grateful we reached out." He nodded. "Let's prep a public statement for the website. No legalese, just facts and an apology." Carmen's pen was already moving. "On it." Inside, Tasha was recalibrating the front desk process. She'd relocated the filing cabinets, removed a dozen unnecessary forms, and taped a single laminated info sheet to the counter that explained the new inspection process. It was clean, direct, and easy to understand. Quentin stepped beside her as she reviewed the new appointment schedule. "Looks more organized already," he said. "I had to redo everything," Tasha replied. "Rick used to double book service slots just to make the calendar look full. Half of them were fake. You think we'll need more admin support? If we keep handling re-inspections and regular traffic at the same time, yes, I'll need someone part-time by next week. I'll approve it. You'll handle interviews." She looked up. "You trust me with that? You've earned it." She nodded once, then returned to her screen. No fanfare, no overexcitement, just focus. In the early afternoon, a white tow truck backed into the side lot. The driver stepped out and waved toward the service bay. A silver SUV sat on the bed, its hood tied down with a length of rope. Marvin limped out from the garage and gave the driver a nod. "Drop it next to the red Accord. I'll take it from there." Quentin walked over and stood beside him as the SUV touched pavement. "You okay handling all this volume?" he asked. Marvin pushed his cap back. "I'm managing, but I'll need someone who can lift transmissions soon. These knees won't hold out forever." "You have someone in mind?" "Yeah, guy named Elliot, worked with me at my last shop. Solid wrench, no ego. Got laid off last year. Tell him to come in. We'll fast-track the process." As Marvin stepped back into the garage, Quentin looked around the lot. Cars were parked with more space between them now. The signage had been stripped of gimmicks, just vehicle models, prices, and inspection status. No more banners, no more half-truths. That night, after the last customer left, Quentin gathered the staff in the break room. It was the first time all 8 of them had been together since the firings. He stood at the front. No podium, no speech. "You've all been through a lot," he said. "I won't pretend that a couple firings fix everything. But we're not here to patch holes with duct tape anymore. We're rebuilding this store from the ground up." He looked at each of them in turn. Tasha's reorganizing the front, Jake's leading training, Marvin's auditing every vehicle. "And Carmen will make sure we never fall out of compliance again. If you see something wrong, say something. You won't be punished for speaking up. You'll be thanked." There was silence for a moment. Then Marvin cleared his throat. "If someone had told me 6 months ago that management would back me on safety calls, I'd have laughed." Quentin gave a short nod. "That's on me. I let too many people operate under my name without oversight. That ends now." Tasha spoke next. You think the other stores are like this? I don't know, Quentin admitted. But after this, I won't be assuming anything. Store 8 is next, then 9. I'll be walking into each one myself. Jake leaned forward. You gonna go undercover again? I won't need to. Not if we build a culture that doesn't require disguises to find the truth. There were no cheers, no applause, just the quiet weight of people who had seen too much to trust easily, and that was fine. Trust didn't need fireworks, it needed consistency. The next morning, Elliot arrived for his interview, and Marvin shook his hand like someone seeing an old friend on solid ground. Within 20 minutes, Carmen had him signed on for a trial week. By Thursday, 2 more recalled vehicles had been serviced, and one customer, a woman whose van had hidden water damage, returned with tears in her eyes. Not from anger, but from relief. Tasha offered her a coffee while she waited for her refund paperwork. By Friday, Store 7 had a new routine. Not perfect, not fast, but honest. Quentin stood outside the building as the sun dipped low behind the dealership's faded roofline. He watched Jake walk a customer through a new test drive protocol, clipboard in one hand, checklist in the other. Marvin's assistant rolled a full tire rack into the bay. Tasha locked up the front desk and turned off the lights one by one. Carmen stepped beside him, arms folded. You're staying through the weekend, she asked. For now, you'll need someone to oversee this full time. We can't run 14 stores if you're parked here. I've already made the call to regional. We're promoting from inside. She raised an eyebrow. Tasha, he said. She knows the systems, the people, and the problems. She'll need support. She'll have it. They stood in silence for a moment longer, then Carmen added, I'm glad you didn't just write this place off. Would have been easier. Quentin nodded. Yeah. But easy's what let it rot in the first place. As night settled in, the last of the staff pulled away in their cars and the lot fell quiet. Inside, the showroom lights clicked off, one by one. And for the first time in a long while, Store 7 didn't feel like a liability or a secret. It felt like a place that mattered again.